In the following Story Warrior interview, Sue Aquila, one of the top-ranked Ironman triathletes in the world today, reflects upon a journey of the body and the interior beyond the seductive comfort zone of today's world, into which we can easily be lulled to sleep and miss the fullness and potential of our real lives. Consider with Sue, what is worth practicing in your life? Portions of this interview will be included in the video art form Life Journey Number 2, The Ultimate Reality, scheduled for release in 2016.
I want to be best in the world, and for me that means reaching the podium at Kona. Will it change anyone's life if I do that? Absolutely not. Will it change my life? Absolutely not. But the discipline required, the integrity required, the focus required, I find all of that intensity improves everything in my life. It makes my marriage the best it can be. It makes my friendships the best they can be. I appreciate every moment, and I really understand that practice is not so much about triathlon. It's about everything else in my life. Triathlon's 3 events, swim, bike, and run, and there's lots of different lengths. An Ironman is one of the longest events you can do, which is a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike, and a marathon, a 6.2 mile run. It has a really cool history. It started with the Navy SEALs. They were stationed in Hawaii, and they decided to see who the Iron Man would be, who was the person that was most in shape. So they made a combination of 3 events. They did the Waikiki open water swim, a bike around the island, and I think it was maybe the Honolulu Marathon, I can't remember. And you know, it was back then they were on regular bikes. I mean, they were stopping for burgers or whatever they needed along the way, but the idea was who was the biggest, baddest SEAL. And that's how the sport started. And the sport has always had an origin with the SEALs, and the SEALs continue to recruit from our sport to this day. I had some great friends that I would run with every morning. And one of them, Tatiana the Greek goddess, suggested that I should try a different sport just to mix it up a little bit to reduce the wear and tear. And I think covertly she also thought, if you run any slower, we'll have to walk. So perhaps we could try some other sports and maybe you could lose some weight and get a little faster. She was too nice to say that directly. So she suggested I try a triathlon. So I thought, wow, great idea. So I got a bike and signed up for my first triathlon, which was like at a horse racetrack. The swim was in the pond in the middle of the racetrack, which to this day remains one of the worst swims I've ever done. And I was just so excited. I had a great day, and I was back of the pack. I was just happy to finish, and I was like, wow, I really like this. I need to learn how to swim and bike and run faster. So it was really inspiring. It was great to see everybody out there, and I thought this could be a really great sport for me. I think it was an intersection of a lot of events in my life. I started my first and main business in 1996, and the business was maturing to the point where all of my energy in the business wasn't helpful to my coworkers, and I think they appreciated me putting my energy somewhere else at that time. I also wanted to get healthier. Part of when you start a business, you're so focused on that business that some things in personal health tend to slide. And I think that I realized that I really needed to engage in an athletic practice to become healthier, perhaps drop some weight, feel better about my body, myself, and in the long run, live a happier life. I have some priorities in life that are very important, and the way I set them up allows my practice. So first and foremost is having time with my family and friends, whether they like it or not. Second is my personal health, and third is my business. So I say no a lot. I get asked to do a lot of other things in my life, and one of the priorities, of course, is my personal health, and an Ironman triathlon takes a lot of training. So I have different things that I've evolved through the years that have helped me. I keep a calendar with all my training schedule on it that my coach loads electronically that I can see from my phone or from my computer. I always finish a workout first thing in the morning. I'll have 2 to 4 workouts a day. So I know that if I start the day with at least one workout done, I'm rolling along. And it's great in terms of how I feel about the day and my energy. Then I usually go on to my next work phase, and that could be writing, that could be working my business, that could be communicating with athletes that I coach. Then my next workout will roll into the plan. After that, I usually eat. Sometimes there's a nap involved. Sleep is really important for recovery, as is nutrition. And then more work, and then usually my third or my fourth workout. So, but the key is that the most valuable asset I have is my time. And I'm very protective of it. So my first instinct is to say no. There's a great writer, Derek Sivers, who's an entrepreneur, and he has this line that he says, unless it's a hell yeah, it's a no. And that's how I feel. Unless I look at something or hear something and go, wow, I really want to do that, no. For me, I talk about myself. I don't talk about practice per se. I think we're more likely to talk about practice if we're playing a team sport or soccer or anything. You don't generally think about it consciously with triathlon. You don't say, oh, I'm going to practice when I go ride my bike. What I think about it is, I think in terms of discipline. I don't always want to do it. In fact, a lot of times I don't want to do it at all. But I know that to reach my long-term goal, it starts with this bike ride today, or it starts with this run later. So for me, it's not about practice, is so much about discipline and success long term. At the Ironman level, when you know you're going to go out and do an event that last one lasted 10 hours, 35 minutes, and 22 seconds, you're very dialed into your body. And you're very conscious of what is happening and why you're doing things. Like a 6-hour low intensity ride is about building your aerobic system and your capillaries and your legs and becoming aerobically stronger. A ride where I'm going to go out and pound the intensity for 3 minutes. We know why we're doing that. We're trying to raise the ceiling so that when we race, it's just a little bit higher to go a little bit longer, a little bit harder. And we're very aware when things aren't right. I remember I have a Hashimoto's, a thyroid condition, and I remember I just knew something wasn't right. And it was just a very small degree, and I went to the doctor and they did a blood test and confirmed it. So I think we're very, almost hyper aware about our bodies. And you know, we talk a lot about flow in sport. When an event's that long, I think it's physically and mentally impossible to be in flow. You have these moments of great, where everything does feel like flow, where everything's connected and working so well, and they're punctuated by these horrible moments where you think, what am I doing out here, and when can I retire? So it's a very bipolar kind of event, but the gift of it is that you learn that all of it is fleeting. So when you feel great, it's not going to last. When you feel badly, it's not going to last. So that same application is in your practice, and it's in your relationships and in your business and your life. I find that the drama of things doesn't get to me because it's encapsulated in this big event where I learn that up and downs are everywhere. And if you fall for either of them, you're going to be in trouble. I'm much more patient with the good and the bad. To compete at this level, you have to be very organized. So you'll find I'll always have little sheets with my workouts underneath my short bands. Even though my workouts are electronic, I write them down so I remember them. Not that I'll necessarily use that piece of paper, but that I'll remember what I'm supposed to do. So, and because you often are in a glycogen depleted state and the fog starts to move its way in, you understand that. So you're much more careful about, I find I'm much more careful when I'm riding, or much more careful about, okay, what is the actual workout I'm supposed to do? So you learn not to trust yourself, and you learn to be very organized to compensate for the times when you're fatigued. I know what my goals are. And to get on podium at Kona, I have to swim 2.4 miles in about an hour. I know that I have to bike X amount of time. I know that I should run a 3:30 marathon. And I know we take big goals and we constantly chunk it down. A great example is during an Ironman. When you hit that marathon, you're already out there for 6 hours, 7 hours. And I don't think of it as running 26.2 miles. I think of it as 4 10Ks plus change. So have a big goal, but then break it down into the little goals. And it's not overwhelming that way. I fail. I mean, this sport, the people that are successful are years and years and years of training every day, competing, training every day, competing. That kind of consistency in anything we do in life, I think, if you're not a genetic freak, really pays off. There are people out there that are gifted that do their first Ironman are one of the best. Well, there'll always be people like that. I think my gift is that I didn't ever have that experience. So I'm okay with knowing that my long-term goal is 5 years away. And I know that everything I do this year, 3 years from now when I start competing for that goal, will matter. So I really try to keep a long-term perspective. I think of things like I'm in graduate school and I've got, 7 years to get my doctorate. So just keep taking it one day at a time. The inside game's the most important part. And it starts with, long rides out here that last 6 hours when you're on your own and nobody else is out here. And, for me, it starts with, okay, what is the long-term goal? What do I want to get to? I often have mantras that I have in my mind, things that I think about, phrases, competitors I might be facing. I sing pop songs. Demi Lovato's Neon Lights has been ingrained in my brain this month. Songs I don't even like, I sing. But it's all about the mental strength. So, and especially in the times when you get down, when it gets really hard. I mean, I've had rides where I've had tears in my eyes. And my old coach Gordo had a great phrase. He said that it's a quote from Joanna Zeiger that said, crying is acceptable in triathlon, but cracking is not. And so you want to get to those dark places because you've got to figure out and learn how to get through them to get to the other side. And so it's not that I'm lying in wait for them, but I know they're coming. So when they get there, I think about, the former pro who beat me in my last race that I might have done, or how badly do I want to be at Kona? Or, okay, you feel badly, you're angry, you need to eat. Oh, yeah, I have to eat. So it is a constant mental game. And when you're racing, it is even amped up further because you may get out of the water and you may think, oh, I've had a horrible swim, the game's over. Well, no, the game's not over. You can't buy the hype. You've got to keep moving. And so when I race, they give us a body tag, a way to retrieve the body and identify it. But I always write the numbers of the women in my age group I'm racing on it, the range, so I know who I'm racing. And then I add a personal mantra so that when it gets hard, I look down and I know, why am I out here? The last race was a huge breakthrough for me because the next step in my journey is being willing to go really deep down in the hole and go to the dark places and keep racing. And I had a friend ask me today, my heart rate monitor failed to work at Texas. And he asked me, how did I know how to pace the marathon? And I said, I knew how to pace the marathon because I ran fast enough that I felt really badly the whole marathon. And that's when I knew I was in the right place. So the mental game is the biggest part. And that's the final frontier to explore for anyone trying to get to the next level. And if you're a pro, you're dealing in that final frontier constantly. For someone like me that has a comfortable job, a comfortable life, everything else, you've got to decide, do I really want to hurt that much? And after this last race, I did want to hurt that much. And then I needed to take a break, and I did. Because you have to recharge too. You can't be in lifting those mental hurdles all the time and think you can continue to go. That's where people burn out and they retire and they quit. So the only thing I rode last week was the couch. I also think winning is a practice. And I know it's not going to happen all the time. Things are going to happen. But believing in the possibility of winning, or going into a race knowing if you just bring your B game, you're going to podium. But if you bring your A game, you can win. And I think that having the practice of winning is really important, and believing that you can have a practice of success is very helpful. But like anything, you have to practice it. And so that's why last year, one of the reasons we raced so much was to practice it. It wasn't just about getting fitter, it was getting used to going out there, digging deep, expecting to win, and then winning. When I was younger, my parents were wonderful to me, but I remember one time I was doing something that was a stretch. I was taking a risk and really putting myself out there. And I remember my father cautioning me on that, saying, you know, it probably wouldn't work. Why would you do that? But I did it anyways, and it was a success. And it's important for people to be surrounded with people that ask you critical questions, but choose those people wisely, because you want them to be the people in the end that might ask you a critical question, but then are behind you 110%. And so I think that as my life has evolved, I'm surrounded with people that expect to win. They expect me to win. That will go to my races and make sure it happens by giving me all the information I need, but that believe in me all the time and give me the pep talks and explain to me what I'm capable of, even if I'm not sure. Because eventually those messages get in, and eventually you start believing them. I used to think that you had to do the I am statements, I'm fast, I'm strong. And what they're finding now is you have to use your name. Sue can do this. You have to identify. Well, that's also your friends saying to you, Sue, you can do this. Sue, you can get back to Kona. Sue, you can win the race. So I would say that one of the practices I did change was making sure in my life I'm surrounded by people that believe in me, that choose to make me better. It feels like we're always moving towards a more protected society, less and less risk. I did a race in January in the Caymans, and the swim was so bad, the water conditions were so bad, no one warmed up in the water. And in the US, that swim would have been canceled. But it's the islands. Man, we swim. So no one warmed up, even the pro that was there didn't warm up. The race starts, and according to one of the spectators, they were laughing hysterically because when they started the race, the current and the waves and the swells were so strong that we didn't move. And when we finally moved, I would watch packs of people get lost, and the kayakers have to go retrieve them and bring them back. But what was fascinating to me about this event, in this race, was that when the swim was over, I was ecstatic because I'd survived this major event. It was incredible, and I felt alive, and it made it fun. And I think we're losing the practice sometimes of taking risks, of putting ourselves out there and finding out who we really are. And to find out who we really are, you have to lay it on the line sometimes. And we have to provide opportunities for our children to do that, for our employees to do that, for our coworkers to do that, for our spouses to do that. Instead of cautioning people not to take a risk, we need to promote, put yourself out there, find out who you really are. Because in those moments, there is where you define who you are. And that can become a practice. And that can make your life richer and deeper and better every time you try something new.